25. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Mr. Barry, will you lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
Wow. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Valerie. Please read the statement of public notice.
The Little Falls Township Planning Board meeting of Thursday, November 6, 2025 is called to order. Please take notice that adequate notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with NJSA 10:4-8 and NJSA 10:4-10 as follows. The notice of the meeting was promptly posted on the bulletin board at the municipal building located at 225 Main Street, Little Falls, New Jersey, on January 9, 2025. Copy of the notice was sent via email to the North Jersey Herald and News, and a copy of the notice was filed at the office of the township clerk on said date. Please note that this meeting is being taped. Therefore, we ask that you speak loud and clear into the microphones.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Barry,
Here.
Mr. Karaj,
Here.
Mr. Luke Damiano,
Here.
Ms. Cataldo. Here. Mr. Seaver, Mr. Pocious,
Here.
Mayor Damiano,
Here.
Councilman Scoba,
Here.
Dr. Abdi, Mr. Wade, Mr. Dolan,
Here.
Mr. Rema.
Here.
Mr. Brigliadoro, Mr. Koblars,
Here.
Mr. Kilpatrick.
Here. Are there any comments from the council for us?
Chairman, no one came before the governing body at our last council meeting with concerns of the planning board.
Very good. May I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of October 9th, 2025?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Please pull the board.
Mr. Karaj,
Yes.
Ms. Cataldo. Yes. Mr. Pocious,
Yes.
Mr. Rema, Mr. Kilpatrick.
Chairman votes yes. Minutes are approved. Please, may I have a motion for memorializing the resolution for 188 NPT Realty LLC, 188 York Pompton Turnpike.
So moved.
Second.
Please pull the board.
Mr. Karaj,
Yes.
Ms. Cataldo. Yes. Mr. Pocious,
Yes.
Mr. Rema, Mr. Kilpatrick.
Chairman votes yes, the resolution is memorialized. Before we start the evening tonight, I have a statement which I would like to present to everyone. An immense amount of work went into the development of the present comprehensive Little Falls Master Plan. Master Plan was developed over a year-long process involving our licensed municipal engineer, our licensed town planner, council, mayor, our land use attorney, our business administrator, as well as members of the planning board. Input from resident surveys and advertised town meetings were taken into consideration throughout the process. The committee members developed and were comfortable in the body of work that evolved and that it maintained the character and development of our town. As chairman, I prefer that developers and landowners minimize variances and make every effort to meet the lawful requirements of the zoning ordinances in effect. Thank you. First application, JSL Properties LLC, 117 Main Street and 1 Center Avenue.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the public. Hello, entering my appearance on behalf of JSL Properties, John Vettery Jr., 3 University Plaza, Suite 207. I see we have a big crowd tonight. I'll try to be as efficient as possible with our time. We do have a lot of witnesses for this application, but I'd like to give a little bit of an overview, as I always do. So the applicant tonight is preparing and proposing a redevelopment of properties located at 117 Main Street and 1 Center Avenue. Together, properties are about half an acre located on the corner of Center Avenue and Main Street. They're located in the Transit Village Zone. Transit Village Zone permits 3-story mixed-use buildings. We all know this site as the Kirk's Goodyear site, which has been vacant for many years and an office building. Excuse me. So the site history. Both properties initially had Victorian homes located on the site, and that was common along Main Street at that time. Properties were demolished, and there was a small gas station located there at the corner of the property. We did have a prior application. The board heard that prior application back, or didn't hear it, but we submitted the application back in 2024. 2024, we had an application that had residential units located on the first floor, which would have required a use variance. That is now eliminated. The prior application also had tandem parking. Tandem parking is where you have parking one in front of the other. That has been eliminated. We also had some other variances that were eliminated. We had the opportunity to speak with the board professionals, some neighbors as well, with the board attorney and the board engineer in coming up and arriving with the plans that you see before the board this evening. So in looking at the plan right now, we have a vacant building in Kirk's Goodyear. The building was originally a Pontiac dealership. There was a few luxury homes that were located there, big Victorians way back when. There was a gas station located there. And then on the One Center Avenue property, that was the location of some, remember the Marston family, they had a home there, turned into an office. It was an insurance brokerage firm that was located there, and real estate firm. And then First Savings and Loan acquired that property. That later was acquired by Valley National Bank. And then Highland Capital Corporation was located there before the site was purchased by JSL Properties. So we're left with two vacant buildings located in the Transit Village Central Business District. Mixed-use buildings are permitted in this district. When the original application was submitted back in 2024, it included larger density, and it included, as I mentioned, residential units on the first floor, which have now been eliminated. And I want to thank the township and the board professionals for their input in making this building a better application and a better site plan as compared to the original site plan, with better access, more green space, as well as better site circulation. So what's the proposal tonight? The proposal is a very elegant mixed-use building. I've been calling it the Bonneville at Little Falls. I think I'm the only one in tribute to the Pontiac Pass, for those of us who remember the brand. Also in French means good village, which is a testament to our good village here in Little Falls. The proposed building, which is appropriately scaled for this location, not seeking any type of height variance, and certainly not a use variance. And it includes approximately 2,900 square feet of retail space on the first floor. You'll notice when the architect comes up to give his testimony that there's some unique features to the site, including a walk through the building. So rather than have to have either residents or members of the public looking to go to the retail stores to get to the parking and go around the building, there's a corridor that goes through the building to get access to the back parking, and created a lot of architectural detail. Again, going back to what we're seeking here tonight. So we have some what are called bulk variances based upon the configuration of the site. And our planner is going to give testimony justifying those variances. We do not have a height variance. We do not have a density variance. We do not have a variance for use. If you look at what's proposed in the Transit Village zone and what's in our master plan, this is the prototypical building of what was envisioned in this area. It's a really a very dynamic new landmark building for our downtown, and it will have the impact of extending our downtown. Sort of unofficially, the downtown almost ends at the Valley National Bank, because the site that's there now always had a parking lot in the front and was always automotive, whether there were cars waiting to be serviced there, or there was parking, small parking area for the Highland Capitol building, which didn't lead to an attractive streetscape. As you'll see momentarily, the design is, quite elegant and really very much in keeping with the design standards that were set forth in the Transit Village zone. So before we bring up the professionals, I just want to run through some of the variances. The members of the public did get notice of the variances. There are 3 variances that are no longer being sought. two of which were never part of the application in that the relief that we were seeking with respect to the minimum side yard setback, the vegetative buffer, and also for the rear yard setback vegetative buffer is only applicable if the properties surrounding the site are residentially zoned. In this case, the properties behind it and the properties to the right of it, the church property, are not located in the residential zones. Therefore, those two variances are no longer required and are not being sought. In addition, after receiving a letter from the board engineer and looking at some of the relief that was sought, we tried to determine a way to eliminate the parking variance that we had. There was a parking variance for just one space under the code in the transit village zone. We need one space for every 250 square feet of retail, as well as 1.25 parking spaces for every residential dwelling unit. And so that left us with a variance. We were able to reduce the size of the retail store so that we're no longer seeking a variance for parking. So we're left with the variance for setback, minimum parking setback against the building, because there's some parking under the building and it's less than 5 feet from the building. We're left with a variance for coverage and a variance for parking in the rear. We do have a request for what's called a design waiver from RSIS. So it's not a variance that we're seeking, but RSIS says that 48 spaces are required, whereas 33 are being proposed. And lastly, we have a variance for the minimum size of the parking spaces. It's very typical that we seek a variance for a parking space size of 9 by 18 as opposed to 10 by 20, which is more of a standard for a shopping center. So our lineup this evening is we have our architect who has handled some applications here before, most notably the 8284 North Compton Turnpike application. And I think you'll see some similarities in the design. Adam Lasota is going to testify in the area of architecture. Our engineer, Connor Ritter from Stonefield Engineering, traffic consultant, Justine Fox, and planner Marcella Trainer, both of which are from Stonefield Engineering. So with that overview, I'd like to call our first witness. Adam Lasota is going to testify in the area of architecture. This was also submitted electronically. If I think you're able to put it on the TV as well.
I just want to make one announcement. Mr. Brickley DeRose, should we mention Margareta? Will not be heard tonight.
The public that are here for the application, number 4 on the agenda, LLC, property on 450 Main Street, block 56, the revenue fellow. December 6th.
Correct.
Also, that they will be providing notice to the public. So they will publish notice in the newspaper. They will also certify evidence that any property that is on tax. So if you hear that, I got a population behind it. Please schedule.
Fourth.
Follow up.
Mr. Briggley, or it's December 4th.
And one more note that this meeting will end at 10 tonight. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so we give the board the benefit of your potential experience. Yeah.
You swear from the testimony that you got for the court.
Yes, I do.
Court.
Yes, it's Adam Lasota, Lasota of Lasota Architects Incorporated. My address is 2424 East York Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19125. Although I am based in Philadelphia, I was born and raised in New Jersey, a little bit south of here. And for my credentials, I graduated from the NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, in 2012 with a BArch in architecture, and got licensed in 2018 in the state of New Jersey. I hold licenses in many other states in the country, all with Pennsylvania.
Thank you. I offer him as an expert in the area of architecture.
Are your licenses up to date,
Yes.
accepted?
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
So if you would, give the board an overview of the architectural plan, starting with the exterior and then going into the number of units and speaking about the floor plans and elevation, then answer any questions.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go by the board here too, just. So you're seeing the rendering here, as John had explained, that we are proposing a 3-story building. One of the challenges that we had when designing this was, the frontage along Main Street was 160 feet. So how do we design a building across that 160 feet that doesn't look like a blank 160-foot wall? So that was our biggest challenge when coming up with this design. And I think we came up with something very iconic, but also very, quote, Main Street USA. What is a building that is new, but that still fits within an old fabric like Little Falls? So we didn't want to propose anything too modern, not too contemporary, some contemporary details, but done in a very kind of Main Street USA avenue. So, and the benefit of that was we started to create these many moments across the facade. And that's why you're seeing a lot of articulation of the facade, both inwards and outwards. More importantly, we tried to activate the streets. And as John had said before, we did propose a walk-through condition. So this way, if anyone is using the parking lot in the back, instead of having to walk all the way up and around and up Center Avenue, there's a nice public, quote, throughway under the building through that first floor. And within those two areas, there's also a number of stairs and ramps, which I'll get to in a second. But primarily also focusing on the zoning requirements and understanding that we have to have a plinth, meaning that first floor has to be activated and separated from the rest of the building. So it looks like a 2/1 as opposed to a 3-story building. We were very cognizant in adhering to and trying to enhance and even further show others that you really can create something beautiful, even though some might call the zoning restrictions, say, restrictive. We take that as a challenge. So just going to move the rendering down and also go over some of the drawings also. This exhibit is a little bit different than what was submitted. We do have additional copies here that we can distribute to the board. Mainly,
So why don't we enter this as Exhibit A1? And if you could explain the difference on this site plan as compared to what was originally submitted to the board?
yes. So there's two main differences. One is, of course, sure, the differences. The different.
No.
Oh, yes. So sorry. Yeah. So this is just an architectural site plan. Again, this is with working with Stonefield Engineering as well. A lot of coordination back and forth. We really wanted to show it is dated the 5th. So 2 days ago. Yep. So our full set is updated. So should the full set be as exhibited or no? It's not per page, is it?
So if you if you have the updates, if we can circulate them.
Yes.
Essentially, the difference here. And
So Stonefield Engineer, when they come out, they'll explain maybe a little bit more detail about the loading zone and also the location of the transformer. But our main concern was providing a loading zone near a trash room. So there was always a trash room in the previous design. But in this most recent version, we enlarged the trash room. This way, the dumpster would be kept inside and only during trash days would it be wheeled out into that loading zone. Of course, it'd be picked up, collected, and then the dumpster would be put back in. So there's no longer a need for a dumpster enclosure. There won't be a dumpster outside, only for those times when, of course, the trash truck has to come and take care of the trash.
And one of the comments that we got back in the 2024 iteration and talking to the neighbors was about having a garbage dumpster on the outside. We know the neighboring property does have a dumpster enclosure and recycling on the inside, and we were able to accommodate that. We'll speak about that when Stonefield comes up and talk about the review comments from Mr. Copeland.
And then the other main difference that we're going to show on the next page is the reduction of the retail spaces in order for us to eliminate the parking variance. So if you go on to the third page of that,
Okay, can you tell us what that reduction was?
it was only a couple hundred square feet. It was, we were just a little bit over, we're at like 3,100 square feet. Now we're just under at 2,900 square feet.
About 230 square feet total?
Exactly. So we reduced it down in order for us to be below that 3,000 square foot threshold and thus for us eliminating that parking variance. So showing the net retail spaces, we added also bathrooms in there as well, because one bathroom, especially for these spaces, was not adequate. We enlarged also some of their back of house and storage areas. So this way, the square footages now of the net retail are under 3,000 square feet. That and also the trash room on the latest drawings is shown as enlarged, and also we show a little square in the corner there for a size of a typical dumpster. So going through the plan, one of the main striking features of that facade articulation that I spoke about earlier, you can actually really start to see in the first floor plan. You can see that the building both pushes out almost to the limit of the property line, but on the majority, it actually pulls back, especially giving that extra space to the street and thus, giving some extra width to that sidewalk, also enhancing that, we want this building to be an extension of Main Street. And we want it to have a presence and not just be right to the lot line, gaining every single bit of square footage. We wanted to pull the building back by creating these nice moments of entry into the retail spaces and to give some extra width along that sidewalk. So this way, no one's going to feel cramped walking up and down that sidewalk if we were to position that building right up to the property line. So as you can see here, we're both flanking that center space with two separate retail spaces, and you'll see that middle area in between is that pass-through that I spoke about earlier when I was presenting the rendering. So from the street, from Main Street, you'll be able to actually walk under the building. There's a series of both ramps and stairs. We want to make sure it's also ADA accessible that meander their way up from the higher elevation of the parking lot down to the lower elevation along Main Street. So again, by having to cut through the building, it saves someone to walk that extra, over 100 feet all the way around the building in the event where, say, either one of the future tenants or if anyone utilizing the retail can be able to actually walk into that center space, walk down the center and be able to go right out. So again, a lot of this was trying to incorporate the building in a way that helped to enhance the streetscape and not just create a physical barrier. So moving on to the next, and also here, one last thing is the parking underneath the building. We know that the previous application had tandem parking under the building where cars were parking like one in front of the other. That creates a nightmare in case, if your neighbor blocks you in, you got to knock on their door and try to get them to move. We've eliminated that. This strip of parking here, which is facing the parking lot at the rear, are parking spaces that will park underneath the building, versus the rest of the parking is out in the open. There's nothing covering them.
I have a question. You have 5 electric charging parking spaces.
Yes, we do. And those 5 charging stations are going to be in this covered area.
Can anyone park in those, or is any of it shared? If 25% of your car is going to be electric?
Well, there's a state mandate that we do have to incorporate EV charging as well. So we are meeting that requirement.
You do have to meet that requirement, but 5 is 25%.
And I believe Stonefield too. I think that's a better question, I think, for the engineers, because we position those spaces on the engineer's plans. But we did.
Yeah, if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ritter will testify as to the EVSE spaces.
Okay, he's the architect. The spaces are here. I asked.
Nope.
Understand.
Great question. We tried to work, we coordinated a lot. So that way there is some spillage of information between us, because we
Right.
wanted to make sure that that our drawings and also Stonefield's drawings coordinated. And this way we're both showing the same number of spaces. So moving on to the next floor plan, the second and third floor plans are very similar to each other. They consist of 10 apartments, 4 on each floor being 2 bedrooms. Those are the ones on the ends, kind of in this light orange color, and all the other 1-bedroom apartments are the pastel green color in the middle. Again, they all meet the standards of hitting the minimum 800 square foot for 1 bedroom requirement and also 1,000 square foot minimum for 2 bedroom apartment. So the building is ones and twos, primarily 1 bedrooms. So it'll be a total of 20 units. And of those 28 are 2 bedrooms and 12 are 1 bedrooms. So the second and third floor plan are almost identical with the change of that, kind of mansard roof and dormer bump in that happens along Main Street and Center. So I'll go right through. So the second floor plan and the third floor plan, you can see they're very similar to each other. Same layout of units, basically the same floor plan on both the second and third floor. We did show a roof plan as well. We wanted to make sure that we are positioning any rooftop equipment as center into the building as possible. Because of perspective lines, we want to make sure that as you're standing on the street, you're never going to see a unit stick out above the roof line. So between positioning them as center as possible and providing those cornices along Center and Main Street, you're not going to be able to have a direct view of any of the rooftop units. And again, the rooftop units are going to be fairly small. Each apartment is going to get their own. So we're not going to have a situation where we're going to have this massive cooling tower or massive piece of equipment on the roof. On the next page, we go to the elevation. So again, the 2D and we got the 3D also view below. Again, here you're seeing that same facade articulation. We're also being very conscious and providing great materials, not showing any vinyl siding anywhere because again, it's against the zoning regulations. Plus, we don't really like vinyl siding either. So for us, we provided a masonry stone base. We're going to do a masonry facade along with a series of concrete bands to be able to differentiate between that first floor and the floors above. And the materials across the facade above is going to be a mixture of fiber cement siding, also fiber paneling as well with a slight reveal, and also a board and batten. So all of these will be fiber cement products. They're not going to be vinyl. They're going to have great longevity, great color, and also not much maintenance as well. So it's a great product and it's going to look great for many years.
Is this comparable to Hardy Board?
Exactly. So James Hardy is a manufacturer of Hardy Board. So we like to say there's other manufacturers that make great products too, but yes, James Hardy is a great manufacturer for these types of products that we're proposing on facades. And more importantly, we wanted to also chamfer the corner as well. We wanted to accentuate that corner and providing that 45-degree angle, again, to activate that corner. So again, all of this is in response to really creating a building that sits kind of more harmoniously with the urban fabric of Little Falls. And lastly, we carry that same facade, of course, up center. We didn't want this to be a one-facing facade, especially of how prominent this corner is. And you'll notice that as the site slopes up, we have this little bit of a quote-unquote blank wall that we're showing it as a Little Falls mural. We would love to approach a local artist to be able to give them a blank slate and design and paint on a beautiful mural, of course, in tribute to Little Falls.
Yeah, so that is conceptual. That would require a variance in order for us to put a mural there. Mr. DeMaria, if you pull up the rendering, you can zoom in on that. There is we have a Little Falls historic picture shown in the rendering. It pointed out, it's a little bit hard to see. We've done it in it's actually on the rendering, not on.
So it's in the latest file that we sent you.
And it's been done successfully in other towns in Westfield and Brantford that we've worked on some projects. But this would be something if the board wants to do, we could also, always come back to the board at that time if the board has an interest in seeing that. Otherwise, it would just remain plain.
And on top of that too, that is a wall that helps to screen off the parking that is parking underneath. We didn't want to create any openings there. Again, we understand that we need parking. So that way that wall continues and helps to screen and block the parking that's happening under the building on that side elevation. That's why we wanted to do something solid. And we thought it was actually something kind of playful, but kind of anchoring this building in where it's located, is providing that mural space for that.
You show tables and chairs at the entrance to the pass-through off of Main Street. What's the purpose of that?
It's just conceptual, to have some benches or to have the, seating area in that area. That's just purely conceptual.
Thank you.
So lastly, we wanted to continue that same language as well. And one of the comments that we did receive was the facade, the side yard facade facing the church was, I guess, left to be a little bit desired. So we did come up with a revision to that and also adding another mural on that wall as well to help brighten it up. We were able to include two actually real windows into the stairwell that you're seeing on that side elevation on that page. Unfortunately, we cannot by code extend and provide additional windows on the side elevation. What we're showing there is faux windows. There would be board and batten. It would be made to look like a window, but we can't put a window there by code because we're so close to the property line there. In terms, and for the building code, it would just never be allowed. So that's why, even though we took the opportunity to put some windows in the stairwell, who doesn't like a little bit of sunlight in a stairwell? And we continued that language across that facade in order to give it some more visual interest. In our previous submission, we did wrap and turn the corner with the hardy panel siding as well. But we just continued also the concrete band and added another mural below to help bring some more visual interest to that side of the building. And of course, lastly, the back elevation as well, it's all hardy siding, and we also provided some more visual interest. A little bit subdued than, of course, on Main Street. We also wanted to provide those articulations on the facade and finishing them with a board and batten siding. So, yep, that's my presentation on the architectural design.
Thank you, Mr. Lasota. No further questions of Mr. Lasota.
Are there any questions from the members of the board?
I have a question. In these pictures, it looks like that the building is going onto the sidewalk that is currently there. Is it going up to the line of where the sidewalk is now, or is it going to be taking over some of the sidewalk that's there now?
So some of the areas where the building bumps out, those few areas, it is going to take up some of the sidewalk because some of that existing sidewalk is on the property. But a majority across that facade, we actually stepped it back and we're providing even a wider area of sidewalk. So it's a,
Mr. Koblar and I, we had looked at that on a phone conference earlier in the week to see, it looks like maybe some of the township improvements were encroaching on the property. And my guess is that most, if not all of that will have to be redone when the construction is done, just based on the grading plan, and the applicant has no problem doing that. So it's really quite close. The surveyors have to look at it. I mean, we're talking about a matter of inches. But in some areas it'll be larger, and maybe in some other areas it will not be quite as large as the base.
So you're encroaching on the streetscape.
No, it was the township was encroaching on the private property.
It's reversed.
Yes.
Very well.
Is there any way the front facade could continue around the entire, would be the right side of the building if you're facing it, and the rear of the building?
well, this side, we did wrap it around to that corner, and that's why we also added some more articulation. Past that corner, that view is going to be obstructed by both the church and also other vegetation that's actually on the church's property. So that strip that we had adorned even more in this resubmission, that's the side, that's the area that's going to be the most visible. In terms of wrapping it around the rear, reason why the rear is as, I guess not as articulated as the street facing sides. One, because it's not the street facing sides. We really wanted to focus on those two. And also the difficulty of having to or have that much articulation on the back is going to would be too much of a challenge, especially from a structural standpoint. So the rear had to be somewhat simplified in order for us to have that open parking underneath the building.
But the materiality is the same. So the hardy board, the
The-
AZAC paneling, the
Yes.
cornice.
Yeah, all of that same
the
detailing.
sanitary-
Yes, that same siding and the same whiteboard and batten that's on the other sides of the building is that same material at the rear. The rear just does not have the hardy paneling, but it does have the hardy siding, and also it does have the board and batten siding.
Of course, Mayor, we didn't render the rear. So, the rendered picture is, what it will look like. The back rendered would have a nice appearance as well, because the materials are the same, the windows are the same, the cornice is the same. But if the mayor or the board has any recommendations for the back, but we did make sure that the material, it wasn't just a blank stucco rear facade, that it carried the same material.
get even portion of the articulation along the front to the rear, saying is possible, or is it just difficult?
Difficult. No, it's just very difficult. That's why those facade articulations at the rear don't stick out as much. It's really because of trying to keep the back facade simplified to allow for the constructability of all that parking underneath.
Mr. DiMaria, could you show the rear elevation just for a moment?
Yep, I'll show you here too. And I think the thing you're also missing on that lower floor is that plinth. Of course, we can't have anything solid there because of all the parking, right? That,
Yeah, so we should have
It's-
showing, so there are, it looks as though those are blank walls where the columns are, but there's depth. So that's not like, it's about 20 feet there. So that's parking underneath, whereas you're looking at it facially, they do look like blank walls in practice, you know, there's a full area of about 20 feet there. So so in appearance, we could have rendered it showing the vehicles.
yeah, but we are going to do even the back wall where the cars are going to be parking, I guess, towards. That whole wall is also going to be masonry as well. So that same masonry finish that we're showing on the front, both fronts, the front on Center and the front, of course, on Main Street, that same masonry is going to be carried inwards as well. It's just not shown here from an elevation standpoint. Hard to really kind of get that understanding without that being just either a very blank wall, or worse, if I were to put like a really dark shadow, it would look, I think it would look even more obtrusive.
Is there a way, if you look at the very first page of the exhibit, to work in any of those angled roofs?
So we're not showing any of the angled roofs because the roof actually slopes from front to back. So I guess any rainwater, we're going to capture it with gutters along that whole side. We can potentially add maybe some peaked roofs at those two board and batten elements that stick out. We can be able to provide some roof, but as you can see, even on the rendering as well, the elevations show an angled roof with some asphalt shingles, but especially from the perspective of being so low, they're hard to see. So even when you're that high up, it's definitely a detail that is harder to capture and see. So that's why we eliminated any kind of shingle roofing on those two elements, because one wouldn't really be seen as well, especially with it being that back elevation. And two, it was really, we just wanted to accentuate that same cornice line of that white board and battened aesthetic that we showed on both Center and Main Street facades, and articulate that at the rear.
And I understand a majority of people are going to see this from Main Street that are driving through town.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of people who will also be coming down Center or who live in the rear of the building who are going to be seeing the rear of the building.
Mhm.
And adding, I think, the level of some aesthetic to the rear might give it just some additional, improved value. Again, if you look at the first page, as you have along the front, I mean, I think the one more element of adding that roof would really change the look of it, because, and there it is, the angled roofs I'm referring to along the front.
Where, you mean the dormer roofs?
The dormer roofs along the front,
Oh, the dormer roofs at the third floor, those
Right.
in-betweens.
right.
Okay.
Is it possible to add those along the rear?
Is it possible? Potentially, yes. We would have to explore how that aesthetic would impact that rear facade, especially with the rear facade not being as articulated and broken up as the front.
The other
So-
thing that we could do, Mayor, is I think, which probably would complement the back more, is I think it would be very contrived, putting that like dormers in the back, is enhancing it with trim, like architectural trim, cornice on the top. So if you look at
Mhm.
This area of the plank, this where you carry the trim along here and put it in at the top. Of that, you do, that we want to do some architectural detail, some lighting there.
Yeah, we can definitely provide some additional trim work in order to really further enhance it.
In addition, and we're gonna talk about this when we get to the site engineering, there's quite a big elevation difference between the backyard on Warren Street and this site. And right now, there's a lot of fencing there in disrepair. We're proposing new retaining walls, new trees, new fencing along that entire perimeter, which will, help to mitigate seeing anything. But we made sure to make sure that all of the materials are the same. Like we didn't, much like with the Bromley, the materials are exactly the same. We have AZAC trim. we have hardy plank, and that's, have the same exact, high standard windows that are proposed here. But I think we could add additional cornice work on here, the band at the bottom that would, help to mitigate the massing and show some definition to the back of the building.
I would like to make that a condition if possible.
Yes.
Any other questions of the board?
I'm thinking now, in addition to the cornice that you're referring to, if we carried that gooseneck light around the back as well, I think that might add to it.
Yeah.
Just a little something.
So especially if we do that, if we carry that same horizontal band that's along Center and also Main Street, carrying that to the rear and positioning those goosenecks right above it, similar to the other facades, then yeah.
It'll add to safety in that situation too.
Absolutely. We were planning on having lighting here, of course, especially under the parking, but having the gooseneck lights serve as both aesthetic and also add lighting, that I'm very much agree
It
with
would
that.
add some dimension as well. That would be attractive.
Mhm.
And then that white area is the cut through, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, the white in the middle, that is the cut through. Yep.
It's nothing completely open.
Yes. Completely open to the public. It's
It's open air.
open air. Yep. We wanted that to be completely open air.
I mean, it isn't open air above. It's open on either
Oh,
side.
open air on the sides. Yeah.
Not open to the general public, but it's, it's open to the public to access the retail stores and it's open to residents of the building. But it would be regulated by management after the retail stores are closed, that it's not accessible.
So parking restricted just to the people in the apartments, or it's say if I want to buy something in the retail store?
No, it's open. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We have a traffic and parking consultant.
To your point where you said that that it would be managed by building management, to prevent, public access to that, covered outdoor seating. Or, this here is a flat area with covered outdoor seating. Would there be some sort of obstruction to the walk?
So there were, it's not on this elevation, there were decorative wrought iron gates, if you remember in the earlier plan that was submitted to the board last year. And I would think that something like that, would probably return. We do have, sites like this around the town, especially now that are managed. And if someone, a trespasser is there after hours, then just like any other site within the township. But, that's an element that if the board would like to see that may be also another decorative element that could be added to the site as well.
Additional question?
Are the windows operational throughout the building
Yes.
in the residential area?
Yes, absolutely.
Casement style or up and down?
So we're actually toying between two different styles, either casement or tilt turn. So a lot of like, if you ever have experienced European style windows where they'll actually tilt
Yeah.
and also they'll open inward. So it's like an inward casement. One of those two.
Except, Mr. Vice Chairman, the windows that we pointed out that are faux, that we can't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, except the faux windows, the windows in the stairwell, they will be just fixed windows. They will not be operable. Only the windows in the apartments, all the windows in all of the apartments will be operable. Of course, the storefront windows along the retail facade, those will not be operable, but of course, the doors will be.
Mhm. Thank you.
I have a question, Chairman, to the floor. Is this building higher or at the same height or lower than the Methodist Church to the right of it?
But actually, that's a great question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the height of the Methodist Church, but from driving by even today, the Methodist Church and the existing the National Valley Bank building, this building is going to be very comparable in size. We're not going to be taller. I don't think we're going to be shorter. We're going to be somewhat right where we need to be with this design.
And just to reiterate, we're not seeking a variance for.
No, we're not seeking a variance for height. No.
I guess we're done.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, you wanted questions of the public at the end?
At the end.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So our next witness is going to be Connor Ritter, who's going to testify in the area of engineering.
I do.
My name is Connor Ritter, Ritter of Stonefield Engineering and Design. Address is 92 Park Avenue, Rutherford, New Jersey. Sure, I am licensed as a professional engineer in the states of New Jersey and Maine. I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Vermont and over 8 years of experience in civil site engineering focused on land development.
I'm sorry, but license is up to date,
Oh, yes, licenses are both in good standing.
accepted, thank you.
Okay, Connor. See, I'm gonna make sure that we go through the comments of Mr. Kovalars. I'm gonna let you give an overview.
Sure, I'll try not to retread on too many things here as we go. As stated before, this is three-story mixed-use building at Main Street and Center Ave. We've received that engineering review letter dated October 30th, 2025 from Alamo Group. We also have the original engineering review letters that we've taken into consideration from back in May of 2024 that were provided for planning by H2M and engineering by Alamo Group again. The project site is on block 93, lots 1, 3, and 14. This is one of the comments from the engineering review. These lots will be consolidated into a single lot as part of this project. The address is 117 Main Street, also known as 1 Center Avenue. Main Street is County Route 631 and Center Avenue is County Route 643. So with these frontages being on county roads, we are seeking site plan review from the Passaic County Planning Board as well. We've submitted our application to them back on October 15th of this year. Alongside their approval, we also have approvals from the Hudson Essex Passaic Soil Conservation District that we've submitted for, and we'll be looking to get utility approvals from PVSC for sewer, New Jersey American Water for water service, and PSE&G for gas and electric. Go ahead. I'll pull up an exhibit here.
This exhibit A2, please, Laura.
Yes, this is a colorized site plan that has been prepared by my office at Stonefield. The date on this rendering is October 29th, 2025. Wonderful. So I won't tread on too much of this again, but as seen here, we have the building, the three-story building with frontage on both Main Street and Center Avenue. In the rear of the building, we have that 33 space surface parking lot. Those 33 spaces is to meet the requirement for parking as dictated by the township. That parking is shared by both the residential and the retail components of the project. And then surrounding the property here is going to be landscaping features as well as a fence along the rear property line to provide additional privacy to those neighboring residential uses. The topography on the site down at Main Street and Center Ave at that corner intersection is the lowest portion of the site. And then as we move our way south across the property, we start gaining grade as we look at up Center Avenue. That sidewalk is fairly steep through there. So once we reach the parking lot in the back, we're a bit elevated compared to Main Street. So we have those stairwells and ramping through the center corridor of the building to provide that access through to the back parking lot. Surrounding the back parking lot, under the existing condition now, this whole area is set fairly low and flat. And then right as we get to the perimeter property line in that back area, we see the grades jump up a good 2 to 6 feet in some places. With the proposed site plan here, we are proposing a series of low retaining walls surrounding the perimeter of the parking lot in order to better support that slope and stabilize it. Right now, it's in a bit of an eroded condition. It's not too stable. So the idea is that with those retaining walls, not only would we provide something a little more secure, but it would support that slope, support some additional plantings above it, as well as that privacy fence mentioned previously. Going through some of the other streetscaping and landscaping that was mentioned, you had some questions before about the streetscaping on Main Street. This was also mentioned in that engineer review letter we were provided, where the building is right up near the property line. I believe we are about 0.3 feet off at its closest point from that property line, which provides a sidewalk with a 5.3 foot minimum width, where the building then articulates inward. That width expands upwards of 8.6 feet. So there is at least that minimum of 5.3 feet, oftentimes wider for walking along Main Street. Once we reach the corner of Main Street and Center Avenue, that new streetscaping that has been constructed along there ends once you turn the corner. We're proposing to continue that same streetscaping style up Center Street for the extent of the property frontage. And along Center Avenue there, it's going to be much wider. It's going to be over 10 feet wide for that sidewalk. So allowing for a couple of street trees, a much wider sidewalk, paper band to accentuate that front that front facade along Center Avenue and the residential lobby there.
And the design standard would be the same as the town has implemented throughout the streetscape, so that the look and feel is the same going all the way up Center Avenue as it is along Main Street.
Correct. It was noted in the engineer review letter that the streetscape standards that have been applied along Main Street differ from those that are typically seen or required by the town. So we are looking to work with the town and make sure to replicate that same standard and continue it around the corner, as opposed to using a typical standard that would not match that in kind. From the standpoint of stormwater of the property, the existing site has the two buildings that are currently vacant, a large parking lot that's along Main Street, and in the rear of the building is fairly occupied with gravel. So with the proposed development, we're looking to have a little bit of an increase to the lot coverage there. But alongside that, we are proposing a stormwater detention system beneath the parking lot. And that stormwater detention system will ensure that there are no adverse impacts to the stormwater runoff coming from the site. There's a couple surface inlets along the driveway. The building will have roof leaders that connect directly into those structures subsurface. And then the parking lot itself is all sloped to drain down into that area. So nothing is intending to run off into Center Avenue. It's all going to be collected on site, detained by the system before being connected into the storm drain system in Center Avenue subsurface from there.
And currently, there's no detention on site. There's no stormwater management on site.
Correct. The current site is entirely unmanaged. There's no treatment, no detention, nothing of the sort. For utilities coming into the property, the existing property has utility connections coming from both Main Street and Center Avenue. There are water mains, sewer mains, and gas mains available along both street frontages, as well as overhead electrical power and telecom on the poles running along each frontage as well. We're looking to run the majority of our utilities off of Center Ave. So that's that storm drain connection that I mentioned previously. It'll be our electrical connection and our gas connection to attempt to reutilize a lot of the existing connection points that are in Center Avenue. Off of Main Street, we will have our domestic water service and our fire suppression service coming off there, where the water main is on the near side of Main Street, as opposed to in Center Avenue, where the water main is kind of on the far side and a much further reach to bring into the sites. Another comment that was received and noted is in question of the transformer on the property. We are showing a proposed transformer location near the driveway entrance. This location is conceptual and to be coordinated with PSE&G and confirmed as to the exact positioning, size, and specifications necessary.
If we just go over, Mr. Chairman had asked about the EVSE spaces.
Yes. So for the EVSE spaces, we have those 33 parking spaces for the entire project as required. And as such, for 33 parking spaces, we are required to provide 15% of those as EVSE spaces. And that's where that 5 parking space count comes from. So that's a state requirement that we're working with. And we have located those along the eastern half of the building, tucked under that overhang there, where they can kind of just sit in line against the building.
And Mr. Chairman, they can be moved if the board would like us to put 2 on the exterior and 2 under the building.
It's not a matter of being moved. The question was, can they be shared?
They can.
So if I do not have an electric vehicle, can I park there?
So they're supposed to be for electric vehicles, whether it's for members of the public that are visiting the building in the retail stores or guests, or typically they are used by residents in practice.
Next, is it okay or you don't object to asking questions about parking
No,
with the engineer?
I mean, we have a parking traffic consultant, but we can ask Mr. Lee.
Well, he's a traffic consultant. Is he also a parking consultant?
Yep, we do. We have someone who's going to speak specifically to traffic.
Okay, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Will these parking spaces, the EV parking spaces, are they simply make ready or are they actually going to be EV use?
So I believe the intention was that they're all make ready, but there probably will be, at least 2 or 3 of them that are actually going to be electrics, have the actual charging stations.
Yeah, our traffic professional can speak more to that. But the state mandate is that we provide 15% make ready parking of EV parking spaces, and those will begin to be filled in as proper EVSE parking
We
spaces.
get this question a lot from boards across the state, and they
Well,
always
it's a
ask.
good
this-
question.
And they're good questions because they ask the question like, are these spaces just going to be sitting there? So, we're regulated to provide these by the state, but at least we have a phasing. So they're make ready spaces. So while, this is developing and electric cars, we don't know where we'll be in, 5 years, 10 years. At least we'll have them make ready, and maybe the intention would be that at least 2 or 3 of them are actual electric spaces with.
Okay, to clarify, since this is a planning board, and we like to be specific, are you gonna have 2 or 3 actual spaces where you can charge?
So our requirement is that we have 5 make-ready spaces And I would say, if we're gonna put it on the record tonight, that with that, if, and we're gonna speak to this in a moment, and I just want to speak to the traffic consultant, if we're able to, that 2 of them would be dead.
Thank you.
Question related to the utilities, electric, cable, Verizon, all of those, all will be underground.
Correct, yes. There's an existing utility pole along Center Avenue that we intend to drop utility connections from. So electric, telecom, all of your internet communications will drop from there. And then it will be carried through that rear parking area into the building from there.
Okay, and if you would just show, I know Adam showed the loading zone, but just show that on your plan, because you have, you were able to address the concern of Mr. Kovalars about having a space for whether it's Amazon trucks or, trucks or vans moving.
Yeah, so on the left-hand side of the plan, right by the room that is labeled as trash and maintenance, that previously had a exterior trash enclosure proposed for it. We have since expanded that trash and maintenance space. Yes, right there, as shown on the screens there. We've expanded that trash and maintenance space to allow for that trash enclosure to be relocated inside. By doing so, we've eliminated the need for an exterior trash enclosure, so we don't have to have anything fenced in, walled in that area. And instead, we're proposing to stripe it off to be utilized as a loading space. So it can be utilized for those trash pickups where the trash hauler comes in once a week, the maintenance crew pulls the dumpster out into that space, they can pick it up and then it can be wheeled back inside. Or in the case of commercial or residential loading, so move-ins or any kind of merchandise loading necessary, they can pull in through to that back loading area and then access the building from that point through the middle corridor of the building. So that middle corridor allows them ramping to wheel down into both the residential and the 2 retail spaces from there.
Thank you.
At what point can we discuss signing?
Yeah.
Sure.
So the signage is, we're not proposing any variances with the signage. We showed, sample signage on the architectural plans for both the residential area as well as the front. And that we would comply with the sign ordinance and not seek any variances.
If we look back at the architectural rendering, we can see that we have signage for each of the retail spaces shown above along Main Street, as well as there will be residential signage at the lobby entrance along Center Avenue, which follows in compliance with the town standards.
And with regard to lighting, Mr. Kovalars, I believe, was satisfied with the lighting, and now Commissioner Cataldo's recommendation for the gooseneck lighting, and people have ample lighting.
Yep, yeah, we have lighting all along the face of the building. There's a combination of gooseneck lights as well as some sconce lighting along the building facade that will improve and create thorough illumination along both the sidewalks, in addition to the existing street lights that are along Main Street. And then in the parking lot area, we have a few overhead lights that are distributed around the parking to provide an even distribution of lighting across there. And then we'll have those gooseneck lights on the rear of the building, as well as a few overhead lights to illuminate the parking below the building there, where that overhang lies, as well as through the central corridor.
And the lighting intensity was taken into consideration with respect to the residentially used properties in the rear on Water Street.
Correct, yes. Everything is going to be dark sky compliant. Everything is downward facing for this. The project site here is actually set a few feet lower than the surrounding properties. So a lot of that illumination, you're not expecting that to spill over. We've reviewed the intensities at the property line as it comes around the edges with those abutting properties to ensure that there's no undue impacts.
Awnings, solid canvas,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
awnings,
Awnings? Yes, they're canvas.
I'm sorry, they what?
Canvas.
I have a couple of questions. The temperature of the light, what temperature is the light gonna be on the site?
So the temperature of the light, we're looking at 4,000 lights on those to kind of give a warm lighting throughout. But if there's a preference as to what that is desired to be, we're open to hearing it.
Even to the front of the building as well, all the way around?
Correct.
Because I personally, frankly, hate the color that PSE and G requires in 5,000. It's too bright of a white and it's frankly obnoxious, but the only color option they give us. I think when there's an option to soften up the light, I think it makes buildings look warmer rather than so commercial in use. And I think somewhere in like the 3,000 to 4,000 range is probably preferred by people coming by or people visiting or neighbors in the area. So definitely a softer color if possible.
We've discussed this and
Yeah.
yeah, we agree completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed on that. We are proposing 4,000 lights right now. We can certainly look at if that wants to be even softer to 3,000.
Yeah, provided we comply, sure.
Potentially, yep. Question about the block wall. What would the maximum height of the block wall be at any point around the property, which I'm guessing high point, I know the highest point is the southern property line, but what's the height of the wall there?
So the highest point of the wall in the proposed condition is going to be less than 3 feet. So just under 3 feet as you come along that that rear parking row.
And the wall will be entirely on the property of the applicant, correct?
Correct. Yes, it'll be set back from the property line a few feet inward.
And then fencing, fencing around the property, what is being proposed exactly?
We're proposing a 6-foot tall fence along the property line, along the rear property line in particular. So running from that southwestmost corner, continuing along eastward until we reach Center Avenue.
6 feet on top of the wall or 6 feet from the,
Six,
from the 3 foot lower level?
it would be 6 feet from the top of the wall.
All right, so vehicles pulling into the lot would theoretically have a 9 foot difference between where the tires are and where the top of the fence line is.
Correct. It would be 9 feet at max.
Yeah, there's currently fencing there. I don't know, some of it may be owned by the former Goodyear site, some of it may be neighbors. We've offered to do all new fencing throughout the entire rear of the site. Also on the, if you can just point out the residential house on Center Avenue so that has all new fencing around it as well.
Yep, there is existing fencing along the rear of that property that we would be looking to work with them to replace with new fencing to provide that screening.
Just speak to the landscaping and to that new center island, which is new for this application, which it does create some additional green space.
May I ask a question? Oh, sure. In regards to the grading, that's the current property versus what is planned or proposed. Is the grading going to bring the property level to meet the neighbors or the church side? Or increase the level in any way, or is it going to maintain the same slope?
So under the existing condition, the property is fairly low and flat until you reach that property line where it then jumps up 2 to 6 feet under existing. Under the proposed condition, what we intend on doing is lifting that parking lot up a little bit above the existing grade. We're not able to completely bring it in line with the surrounding properties, given that significant height difference between them. But we are bringing it up so that that difference is now under 3 feet as opposed to previously where it was 6 feet. So the the parking lot will still sit lower than the adjacent properties, but not as low as it does today.
So it's gonna go, you're gonna grade up towards that back property line by 3 feet?
Yes.
I have a question about the transformer. It's proposed to be adjacent to the sidewalk on Center Avenue, I guess subject to PSCNG approval, right there. Would you consider redesigning that retaining wall so the retaining wall covers and obstructs the transformer so that people on the street aren't within arm's reach of it?
One of the other locations, I'll ask the board your preference, where we have it at the Bromley is in the island in the back. You could locate it in the island.
Oh.
There's more room
Where
there.
your parking lot?
Yeah,
in the parking
the
lot?
parking island. We have, you go back to the Bromley and you take a look, it's landscape in an area around.
So you'll move it.
If, if you, is that the preference?
Like,
Yeah, it would be less visible from Center
Yeah.
Avenue and
Yeah.
it would work. There's more room there.
Yeah, we'll have to,
Consider it move.
yeah. And
So the transformer we've currently located in the area right on Center Avenue. We're going to relocate that to the traffic island in the middle of the park. With landscaping above. Speaking of landscaping, if you would.
yes, so with that, like said previously, the transformer, all that, that'll be coordinated with PSC&G as well, ensure that they have what's necessary for them for their siting. But speaking of that center island there, we now have a landscape center island, which is new compared to the previous application back in 2024. So this adds a little bit of green space in the middle of the parking lot and adds separation around it. We have a tree proposed here, as well as along the southern property line where we reach the corners of the parking lots there. And then we're also proposing additional shrubs and vegetation along the property line to provide a little more greenery in that vegetated buffer where possible.
Mr. Veteri, you'll get together with landscaping, committee and
We will, yep, and we'll share that with the Little Falls Shade Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question concerning the garbage container. I think that would be awfully small. It would probably be the same size as the front desk here where Mr. Arena and Mr. Dolan are sitting. If it's a roll garbage container, it's not much bigger than that front desk, but probably a little bit higher. That's not a very large container for 20 apartments.
I mean, we have the ability, that room could be much larger, like the trash room that you bring a good point up about recycling also. So maybe that would be, we can make the room even larger to accommodate to it.
Right, because if it's one that's being wheeled, I don't know how large. I know we have one at the Civic Center and that's wheeled.
I think the proposed was 5 feet.
Yeah, the proposed was a 5x5 rolling dumpster that
Right.
tenants would be able to access that trash room from a side door, dispose of their trash, and then there's larger double doors at the front where maintenance could then wheel it out into the loading area for pickup.
So by way of example, Mr. Scopa, we have 2 at the Bromley, that's 34 dwelling units and 6 retail stores with a larger building. And it's a weekly pickup by Gata once a week.
And it's that size,
Yeah, there were 2 5-footers.
2 5-footers.
So I think we can accommodate that.
Yeah, because I think definitely one 5-footer isn't going to cut it here.
Yeah, no, good recommendation. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, but one more site question. Is there any way along the back row, the most southern side, part of the site, where there's currently 6 spaces? Although I hate to lose any green space, it's literally 9 feet below neighboring properties after a fence. Is there no way to add an additional parking spot, even if the front of the spaces were 15 feet wide, the rear of it was still at least 9, to kind of create?
I love the way you're
Vertical.
thinking. I think we did look at that in an effort. I'll let Connor answer the question. I don't believe so.
Yeah, we have looked at that spacing around the site to try to include as much parking as possible to serve both the retail and residential portions of the development. The spacing, there's just not enough space given the dimensional requirements necessary for the parking spaces being 9 by 18 for the residential use. And even in the case of this application, we are already requesting that the parking spaces for the retail use be reduced in size from the required 10 feet by 20 feet down to 9 feet by 20 feet. In this case, we're proposing 9 feet by 20.5 feet, just to try to make as much of it as we can.
The 88 spaces, will they have the striping on the sides for wheelchair access?
Yes. Yeah, there'll be one van accessible ADA space and then a second standard ADA space.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hold up.
I'm sorry, this might be a question for the architect, but I just noticed that in the gymnasium, it says residential gym / office suites. Could you clarify what that is?
So, yeah, I think there's some amenity space only for residents of the building.
Yes, that would be strictly for the residents. So on a lot of multifamily buildings, we offer, we'll design small little office suites. So if someone's working from home and they don't want to work in their apartment, they can go down there, and that's just for the tenants only. These are not leasable office spaces for the public. This is strictly amenity spaces for the residents.
And may wind up being a library, lobby space, some other, additional part of the gym. It's conceptual, but it would not be. Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? I'd like to ask our engineer, Mr. Kovalars, if he has any comments.
This, clarification with the sidewalk or maybe that from the curve.
The 5.3 feet is from the base of the curb to the building, correct? Correct. The building face at its closest is about 0.3 feet from the property line, which then leaves that additional 5 feet on the right of way side of the property line for sidewalk. The recommendation given with the engineer review, I believe, included or sought out a minimum of 5 feet sidewalk width. That we want to ensure that we're meeting with that. And as well, we are the insets of the building are placed in such a way to complement the existing streetscape features that would otherwise act as obstruction. So where the sidewalk then becomes 8 feet, that's where the light posts, the street trees, those things exist. So we're maintaining that minimum 5 foot wide access all the way along the sidewalk.
And the applicant's prepared to work with Mr. Kovalars with regard to what I believe is probably going to be a complete redoing of that streetscape.
Mr. Kovalars' comments, it states a minimum 4 feet.
Well, 4 feet on the sidewalk. Typically, it's.
It'll bring it to 5. Thank you. You have any other comments or questions?
Lighting.
Yeah, the lighting on site will be on solar cells, so it'll react to dusk till dawn.
I'm sorry, I didn't
So
understand.
it'll be dusk to dawn. It's going to be automatic, so we don't have to worry about regulating it so that the lights will be on when it's.
Beyond 24 hours, not 20,
Yeah,
from
dusk to dawn.
Chairman, I know there's a 0-foot setback from the front property line permitted, but is there any way to push the building back 6, 12, 18 inches? And still make it fit with the parking spaces in the rear?
That's a Connor, it's awfully tight, Connor, is that
Uh,
possible?
In the rear of the building, it is awfully tight in the rear as to where that space would lie. Everything would end up pushed further back where we're already seeking a close proximity to those other property lines there where we like to maintain some amount of space. It, we can look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah, if,
I'm trying to see if we could even take half a foot out of the bill. It's just, the design is tight. Yeah.
But what if the entire building was moved back? 12
yeah, so if the entire building move back 12 inches, we have a minimum driveway width that we need to maintain off of Center Avenue. Then we have the parallel parking spaces along that drive aisle as well. So shifting everything back in that direction would just bring the entire site even closer to the rear property lines where those walls would end up very close on top of it. And likewise with the fencing that wants to be on the high side of those walls.
I noticed, Mayor, in some of the streetscape areas, there's even particularly an area over by the Brownstone Apartments where they have mitigated this by making the paver area somewhat narrower in the areas that we have to. So if that is acceptable, Mr. Poblat, like we could just redo that entire front and then adjust the area, the curb, the sidewalk where the pavers are, only in the areas that we need. It's discreet, but if you're walking west on Main Street by the Brownstone Apartments, where the Morris Canal walkway is, there's areas there where that brick paver area comes in very narrow and it leaves the sidewalk.
Just keep in mind, part of the streetscape, the corner is a paver strip, not decorative, should be like, plant or.
It was only in the areas that we need.
Yeah.
Right.
Diameter.
Yeah.
Sign, so we'll need a good solid 4-foot minimum, sidewalk.
Yeah, we'd only be seeking to reduce the paver band width in the sections where the building base is right up against the property line in order to provide that. And the building has been designed to set the face back further where those streetscape features lie. So when we're talking about the street trees and the street lights along Main Street, that is where the building is set further back. So there is that additional width available where we're in fact going to be widening the sidewalk from its existing width to then meet the building face.
But just so the members of the board understand, members of the public understand, so what would the width of the sidewalk?
The width of the sidewalk in the front ranges from 5.3 feet from building face to base of the curb at the narrowest portions with no obstructions in those areas. Or it is upwards of 8.6 feet in the areas where, in this case, as on the screen, there's 8.4 feet there where we have the tree, the street tree and the planter as shown. And then along the other face, it's upwards of 8.6 feet where the building face is set back, where once again, there is a street lamppost and a street tree.
So in the areas where the building juts out, that's the area I'm suggesting that we just make sure that the sidewalk is larger, area where the brick paver is more.
Correct. In those areas, there are no streetscaping features in that paver band, and that would
So it wouldn't
be
impact the trees, wouldn't impact the.
correct.
Yeah, right.
Would it be possible to cantilever the building just in that corner of the property? In other words, have the ground floor set back a foot or two, and the second and third floor can go over it.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
That way you would not lose any apartment square foot.
We certainly can. Construction wise, make it a little bit more complicated, but we can make it work.
Mhm.
You know, the main reason why we only provided those articulations forward was only on those three moments, the center, because we wanted that to be inviting. And then the ends where, you know, the one end, which is the second means of egress, and then the other one is at the corner. So,
Yep.
what we could,
Wouldn't recommend it at the point. That's such a significant feature.
I wouldn't do it at the corner, the center portion and also the other end, we could potentially move the lower floor inwards and the second and third floor would cantilever over, just to give us a little bit more room to maneuver at the sidewalk if that's
Is that, is
necessary.
that acceptable?
So
Yes.
I think one of the major issues is on the corner of Main Street and Center Ave on Main Street are multiple manholes and I think a massive telephone pole. And I say that because I know that the streetscape in that area required there already to be no 30-inch stamped section of
Yeah.
red.
I was there with you the day they were doing.
And the reason was because there were obstacles in the way in
Right.
that intersection that didn't permit us to put the stamped red paver concrete all the way to the corner. So my concern is with that portion of the building having what is being proposed as a 64-inch total setback from the face of the curb. That is literally leaving, you know, with a 4 or 6-inch curb, I think it is leaving a 58-inch actual wide sidewalk.
Is that, Hunter, is that right?
What, 5.3 feet is 60 inches plus 4 is 64 inches. If a curb, and that's from the face of the curb. If the curb is 6 inches wide, that's leaving us with 58 inches of sidewalk from building to inside of the curb. That's not a very wide area at all. And I agree, the building looks better with the jut outs. But the issue I think we face here is really the just practicality of the
Yeah, I
corner.
mean, we're talking, I see what you're saying. I mean, we're only talking about the first.
I mean,
You would still have that articulation above.
I agree. If I walk someone my size, past my size on the, you know, on the sidewalk, one of us is pushing the other into the street. You know, so I think that's
And the
part of
mayor
the
pushing
concern.
people
but-
in public.
So
I think,
so I think that's part of my concern here is that it's a narrow, very narrow on the Main Street side.
yeah, Mr. Poplar, would that be acceptable to you if we set those back just on the first floor? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll make it work. Agreed. So, yeah, so why don't you, so we have, maybe you could point them out on your exhibit. So we have 3 areas on the first floor where the building juts out by, I can't see what that dimension is.
Yeah, so we have on the
On the western
northwestern
side,
corner, we have the building that juts out providing 5.3 foot sidewalk width from face of building to curb. That area would look to get pulled in further to provide a wider sidewalk at the ground floor level, where we meet the center of the building, where the corridor lies through. That's another position where this would be pulled back to provide a wider sidewalk. And then lastly, at the corner intersection of Main Street and Center Avenue, that is the last position that would want to pull back at the ground floor to provide that wider sidewalk.
Thank
Any additional comments from the board?
Mr. Ritter, would you clarify again at the beginning, and forgive me, I may not have been listening, but you mentioned the Passaic County Planning Board. Did you say you were already granted approval or you have yet to go to the planning board?
We submitted our application to the planning board back in mid-October, and we are awaiting their review review comments to then be seen in front of their board.
All right, thank you.
So we're in agreement with all of Mr. Kobelars's comments, with one exception, and that had to do with a comment, and we're going to speak about this in planning with regard to affordable housing. So there's a little bit of a conflict. So the township had settled, with the fair share housing back in 2016, and that required any multifamily building going forward post-settlement have a set aside of 15% for rental, 20% for sale. There is something that one of the planners noted in the Transit Village CBD zone, and maybe that's where Mr. Kobelars found it as well, that spoke to 20%, but there's a conflict, I think, in the code. It's always my understanding, if it was rental is 15%, 20%. So to the extent that we need to request a variance from that, we're going to speak about that in the planning testimonies. It's not the intention that there be a 20% set aside. It would be a maximum of 15% unless the applicant can show a hardship and the special master and gets approved by Judge Del Sardo here at the Passaic County. But we want to make sure that we're not agreeing to a 20% set aside.
What are you agreeing to?
That we're agreeing to work with special master for the town and planner, and then we have to comply with fair share housing. It's not a township requirement, it's a state federal requirement.
Very well.
Thank you.
Is that it for the presentation?
That is it for the engineering. We do have traffic and then a wrap up of planning.
Last opportunity for questions or comments from the board member? Very well, thank you very much. I am going to declare a 10-minute cover break. We are on break.
Yeah.
But it is on.
Well, that announcement did a better job than me calling the morning meeting back to order. Meeting is called back to order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next witness is going to testify in the area of traffic and parking, Justine Fox of Stonefield Engineering.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yes, I do. Sure. My name is Justine Fox, last name Fox, business address 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. My license is current and good standing.
License is up to date?
What was that?
Are the licenses current?
Yes, my license is current and good standing, and I can go through my credentials. I received my degree in civil and environmental engineering from the University of Maryland. I have over 9 years of experience in land use in the state of New Jersey, and I've worked on dozens, if not probably close to 100 projects, such as the one presented here tonight.
Thank you. Accepted.
Sorry, I can slow down if needed. So our office did provide a traffic study for the proposed development tonight. Correct. I'll go briefly over the traffic, and based on the board's questions so far, I'll go in depth in the parking. So the proposed development is located at the southwesterly quadrant of Central Avenue and Main Street Center Avenue, you're correct. As previously mentioned, these are both under county jurisdiction. The existing frontages are about equal in width, and under existing conditions, there used to be 2 curb cuts along the Main Street frontage. Those have been recently closed. And then along Central Avenue, under existing conditions today, sorry, everyone, Center Avenue, there is a current 2-way driveway that is located within feet of Main Street. So our proposed development here is relocating a driveway for the development about 70 feet away from that Main Street intersection. In terms of traffic into and out of the site, this would be a significant improvement out of what's currently existing there today. Now, the traffic generated by the site, for that we refer to the ITE. That's the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. The manual looks at land uses across the country similar to this, and based on data points, different criteria, comes up with the amount of traffic you would anticipate a development like this to generate. For this development, we did look at both the residential component as well as the retail component of the site. I'll start with the residential component. We looked at the 20 units proposed here. And as a conservative estimate, we did not take into account the walkability and the proximity of transit options within Little Falls. We are located less than a 10-minute walk from the train station. So really you would expect residents to be utilizing the advantages of being in a well-located location where you would not need your vehicle for every trip in and out of the site. So at most, our calculations, we estimated about 20 vehicles in and out of the site within an hour. So this is less than one vehicle every few minutes based on residentials. And again, that's an overestimate of what we anticipate because that assumes that we're in an area where you could not walk anywhere. You could not use the buses or trains. One vehicle in and out of the site, the way the trips work, one vehicle that maybe leaves, maybe doing their partner a favor and driving them to the train station and comes back within the same hour. Even though that is one vehicle, it does count as 2 trips in our calculations. So again, at most, we estimated that within 1 hour, there'd be 20 trips, but really that would be possibly 15 vehicles, even less. And again, with the availability of the other retail, the other uses on Main Street, the proximity of the trains, we do not anticipate the residential component would be a significant traffic generator here. In addition, we did look at that retail trip generation. However, we came up with trip generation for the weekday morning, evening, and Saturday peak hours. So that's about the 1 hour in the busiest during a day where it would be most busy for the retail component. However, we do not know the tenants here. So, we have estimates, but it's possible that during the weekday morning, that retail might not be opening till 9 or 10 a.m. So that is peaking at a different time of that residential component. Our estimates in our traffic report did not take into account any interaction between the 2 uses. And at most, when adding up the 2 different uses on site, we found there would be at most 51 trips per hour. ITE sets a threshold for when ITE and the New Jersey Department of Transportation set thresholds for when they anticipate traffic could impact a nearby intersection, and that would be 100 vehicle trips per hour at one intersection. So here with access both from Center Avenue, both from the north and south, you would not anticipate being close anywhere near to that threshold of the traffic generated. So overall, this is a very low trip generator for the development. And again, we did not take into account any of the existing traffic that was there from the previous use, that the office building or the or what it used to be like when it was an auto shop. In terms of parking, we do meet the parking requirement per the redevelopment area. For residential, the redevelopment plan does require 1.25 parking spaces per unit. This is within industry standards. Again, looking at ITE, that's the Institute of Transportation Engineers, they have a parking generation manual that again studies uses such as this and looks at the peak parking demand of residential developments. For suburban settings, so again, this is not that typical of a suburban setting because we are close to buses, other uses, trains, but for suburban settings, the parking demand is also 1.25 spaces per unit. So when you look at accounting for the setting, and the type of bedrooms, 1 bedroom versus 2 bedroom, really the industry anticipates, that the parking demand could go as low as 1.0 spaces per unit. So you're, providing more than enough within industry standards for the parking for the residential. And then again, with the retail, we are meeting the parking requirement with that EV space credit. I do want to note that again, retail parking demands do peak very differently than residential parking demands. So during the day, retail parking demands typically will peak around 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Again, it depends on the use of that commercial space, but during that time, residents would not be home. The residential parking demand peaks overnight around from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. So this parking lot that provides 35 physical spaces would be more than sufficient to meet the parking demand of the development in terms of
You broke it.
Chairman went to the rack.
While we're waiting, can you also go into RSIS? And its differences for parking?
Sure. Does this work? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
So RSIS has a much higher parking demand per unit, and it does consider this type of use more of a garden apartment, which I do not think is a great descriptor of this mixed use, building with 2 residential floors. RSIS does require 1.8 spaces per 1 bedroom unit and 2.0 spaces per 2 bedroom unit. It should be noted that within RSIS, there's a built-in 0.5 space per unit guest parking that's built into those rates. So really, when you look at the, not including the guest parking, the RSIS parking demand really goes down to about 28 spaces for these 20 units, plus the 10 spaces for guests, which would overlap with the retail here. That is why we're seeking a
Variance.
design waiver for RSIS. But again, the New Jersey standards do have, do say that they refer to individual municipalities to determine parking demand for residential developments based on what best fits their towns. And then a question about the EV spaces earlier. At the initial construction, so for residential developments, 15% of the parking supply must be allocated for make-ready spaces. At the time the construction is complete, the first 5% of that 15% needs to be installed. So that would be 2 vehicle spaces here. Yeah.
She did a very good job.
And then within 3 years, the next 5%, and the within 6 years of construction, all of them would need to be installed. So that's looking at probably the year 2033 that all 5 of them would be installed.
Any questions for the board?
So I have a little concern with not knowing what the retail space is. I understand that. My concern is that we're asking for a waiver on parking spaces. But you have residents, you have 20 units, am I saying that right? Yeah, 20 units. And now what happens if retail 1 becomes a restaurant and retail 2 becomes stuff? Now everybody's parking in the spots. People are coming home from daycare or from work, or they're coming home from a soccer game. And now all the parking spots need parking for the school.
Yeah, so it's a good question. Usually, the response that we get this question on, the response to that is a Starbucks or a restaurant would not locate in the city based upon the park. And if they did, we probably would not be successful at this site. We see this probably, as property managers and building owners, it's your job to select the right retailer for this space. So,
the code, when we looked at the transit village, many years ago, we looked at what standard should be applied, given that there is some public parking. Now we have better public parking, they have a township, that's maybe a little bit easier, it's a large canal, it's a parking lot, but it's question. We are, the RSIS only speaks to RSIS only speaks to the resident, so we can only go by what the town has said in their zone, and for that, and that was why we reduced the size of the retail space, some, so we can be something that, you know, later, retail use from a practical standpoint that we want to do. I understand the problem.
The question from Mr. Bosis is a very good one. In my opinion, the site cannot handle the traffic parking from a restaurant. Would you agree to make it a condition that a restaurant not be allowed into this?
I think that the appropriate way to handle that would be perhaps that in the resolution, and should a restaurant seek to go into the site, that they would have to be here before the board.
I would prefer to have it as the condition that the restaurant not be allowed at all.
As a prohibition, but then legally, so they would still have the right to come before this board to seek a waiver or to seek relief from that condition. So, yeah, so I think we're getting, I would prefer to have it that, just don't have, you don't have a prohibition against it, but with a restaurant, have to come to the board, but I think we're at.
The parking requirement for a restaurant is very different than it is for a retail establishment in the central business district, because the parking requirement is one parking space, I believe, per 2 seats. Where the in a restaurant, the parking requirement in commercial space.
One zone, I'm not sure, I have to look in the transit zone, that's. Be one zone, one space for every 2 seats and one space every 200 square feet. In the transit zone, it's one space for every 250. I don't know if there's a differentiation for office for care, that's fine. That we have to look at, but I think we do want to stipulate that, we would not have a restaurant there, if a restaurant wanted to come, they would have to seek the leave.
Were you gonna make a comment as well?
I was just gonna say that these retail spaces are very small. It's less than 3,000 total and split in half. No restaurant would be large enough to create a parking demand higher than what's provided when taking into account the 35 spaces provided on site.
Thank you.
Chairman?
Yes.
Did I understand correctly that the RSIS doesn't take into consideration, it only takes into consideration residential, right?
Correct.
Okay, so our parking requirement is for the residential purposes only. No,
No.
our parking requirement speaks to both for residential, our code, which we have to seek a waiver, not a waiver, but a variance. The code says 1.25 spaces for every residential unit, whether it's 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 1. And then for retail, would be 1 space for every 250 square feet. RSIS says we need 1 point for residential. Typically, RSIS is speaking to developments that are off the highway that have absolutely no other collateral parking whatsoever. If you're going to say 1.8 space for every 1 bedroom unit and 1.8 for every 2 bedroom, I think you can. So to satisfy what I'm thinking as well as other board members are thinking, is there a way to assign parking to the tenants specifically to support that our tenants have spaces when they come back to their homes, rather than it being succumbed by whatever traffic is brought in by that best to the building thing, rather than to mandate that. You know, what I've seen in practice is you dedicate the spaces for every unit, so you have at least 20 dedicated spaces, and then no one parks there during the day. So it seemed like the idea of having a shared parking arrangement, this gets feasible as well. I think it's better that the building manager campus.
Yeah. When you assign a specific space per unit, you may accidentally create an artificial retail parking problem. I think, in my professional opinion, something like a hang tag for residents is a better solution so that residents do have priority. They can park there overnight. There's no lingering retail that stays there, as they would not have that residential sticker or hang tag, whatever it is.
Yeah, the hang tags don't work, when they come home and pop. So I think something should be done in the resolution to make sure that, the tenants have a place to park at all times.
I think that creates a parking problem. Because that's 20 spaces that can never be used by anyone else. Versus the intention in the central business district of allowing a lighter number of parking spaces in total. Because during the day, the intention is that the retail establishments or people doing some shopping are using that exact same spot rather than dedicating it to one car only. And I guess the real issue becomes if tenants don't have spaces, turns into not a desirable place if they don't have them. And I guess rents would be adjusted accordingly, I guess. My point being, I don't think the tenants at night are gonna have issues finding spaces because the retail component should be closed.
I really understand your point. So are we assuming that this parking will be available to all retail shoppers across Main Street? Well, no. Across Main Street. Well, I thought we talked about. This door. The buildings for, so on Main Street, Broadway, we have, we have website management, we have cameras there, so if someone's parking in any private parking lot, right, and there's the proper signage on the law, the right have the code. So this is only for this building. And, I must have misunderstood the mayor's comments. I thought he'd say for the entire central business district.
No, the intention of the lowered parking number required through the central business district was intended that there would be shared parking amongst both the residential and retail components of buildings
On that
in
property.
each building.
I thought you meant for that.
And they're actually people standard for restaurants, but just look it up. For restaurants, it's, the B1 is 1 or 2 in this C, in the central business district, restaurant, taverns, 1 space, for the 3 seats. So we're gonna stipulate not to have a restaurant, here, but, should a restaurant want to come to this space and do that?
Any other questions? Thank you, Phil.
Our last witness is Marcello. Not for this board, so for. Testified, very well. You're going to be testimony.
Do I need to qualify myself? Okay.
No, you have to.
Okay. Again, my name is Marcella Trina, for the record, last name Traina. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey and a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. Both my license and certification are in good standing, and I have testified as an expert before this board previously.
Accepted.
All right, so again, to reiterate, the subject property is located within the Transit Village Central Business District, where mixed-use buildings are permitted. And we're here this evening seeking relief for a few items. Parking setbacks and dimensions, lot coverage, and affordable housing requirements where 20% is required per the ordinance. I just want to note that this project will meet the state's 15% affordable housing requirement, so we are fully going to comply with that state standard.
We'll comply with the state standard unless the applicant demonstrates the hardship under the law. What would they not wind up being an actual 15% inclusionary? We will.
You're gonna confirm that with the master?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, in terms of parking, the project will comply with the total number of spaces that is required. The only relief being sought for the parking relates to setbacks and minimum stall dimensions. A few parking spaces are 9 by 20.5 feet, which actually exceeds the industry standard of 9 by 18 feet. A retaining wall, fence, and landscaping will buffer the parking area from the neighboring property. And because the parking area will be located beneath the second floor residential units, it technically creates a 0-foot setback, but it's fully integrated into the building design, so really no substantial impact there. This location and configuration of the parking will maximize the number of parking spaces in order to meet that parking requirement. And in my opinion, this clearly satisfies the C2 benefits versus detriments test, as providing sufficient parking far outweighs any potential detriments from setback relief or the parking stall dimensions, which are mitigated by the proposed buffering and design improvements. Regarding lot coverage, while we exceed the maximum permitted, the plan introduces new landscaping along the rear and side yards, representing a clear benefit compared to the existing conditions. From a planning perspective, the redevelopment of the site into a permitted mixed use supports MLUL Purpose A of the municipal land use law, as it represents an appropriate use of the land that promotes the general welfare. It's also important to note that the property is within walking distance of the Little Falls train station, directly supporting the Transit Village goals. The proposal aligns with the master plan's vision to promote transit-oriented development in appropriate areas of the township. And for these reasons, it's my professional opinion that these variances can be granted under the C2 benefits versus detriments criteria statute, which means that the benefits of the overall project, including being a transit-oriented development, a permitted use, compliant with parking, with new retail spaces, far outweigh any potential detriments associated with the granting of these variances.
Could you just review the required variances in simple form?
Sure. So we are seeking a variance for the parking setbacks, and the parking stall dimensions, the lot coverage, and the affordable housing requirement.
So there are 4 votes. I only have 3 votes, so we need a variance for 9 by 8. The 9 by 20 is opposed to the 10 by parking space.
Correct.
That's my question.
Yes.
So it's 4.
Yes.
Two minimum parking setbacks, lot coverage. We have the waiver for RSI, the parking stall size, and also requesting the variance from the Affordable Housing Authority, the CPD zone.
Very good. Any further questions from the board? Thank you very much. You have anybody else? In that case, I will entertain a motion to open the meeting to the public.
Make a motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Meeting is now open to the public. Anyone wishing to come up and address the professionals, ask questions, make comments, please approach the dais.
Ma'am.
Okay, my name is Kathleen Zeneker. Zehnacker. I live at 141 Browertown Road, Little Falls, New Jersey. I have a couple of questions. I heard conflicting, yes, I did. I heard conflicting, things about the parking. One was, we're gonna have enough parking spaces, because the tenants aren't gonna be there during the day and the restaurant and the businesses will have the parking spaces. And the other side said, oh, a tenant can take their, first, we're a transit village too, so we're not gonna need cars. But then somebody talking about parking said, oh, well, the tenant can drive their other partner to the train station and then return, and that would count as 2 travels. So we're still talking about their car being in the parking space during the day because one of them is taking the train, but the other one car is in the parking space, which then means that the rest of the businesses don't have that space during the day. Another thing was about the number of cars going in and out of the driveway. The Valley National Bank is right across this, their exit and entrance is right across the street from this exit and entrance. If we've got 50 cars going out of there every hour and 50 cars going in and out of this one every hour, we're talking about 100 cars. And I realize it's not going to be 100 cars. But I was here, I listened and participated in the Zoom meeting for the Valley National one. And there was a lot of discussion about the parking there, about the traffic that was going to be generated, and it passed with no problem. This is in addition to that traffic. This is in addition to that parking. To me, it does not seem like, yes, you've got the Bromley. There's lots of parking and empty spaces around the Bromley. There's parking in front of it. This has no parking in front of it. This is already a congested area with not a lot of parking around it. We're talking about a municipal parking lot a block away. He referred to, oh, if you have a parking lot or a business on a highway, you get 1.8 because there isn't parking available. You have to have that parking. Well, this building really isn't close to parking, so it would need more than 1.25 spaces per unit. And I don't think the variance should be awarded for that. I also question the affordable housing. Are we going to have affordable housing in it or not? I did not see that on the variances when I looked at the variances, and it was discussed tonight, 15%. I did not see whether that is going to be met in the thing. Right now, that's, well, I know there was more, but I'll sit down and if anybody else.
Mr. Vittori, you want to respond?
The transit village zone was developed, there were exhaustive studies, as the chairman pointed out, when the master plan was put together. They didn't come up with the number out of thin air. They came up with the number based on studies, looking at other towns. And they determined that 1.25 was the right number for these type of buildings in the central business district, given the other collateral parking. And with regard to retail, it's not that different. B1 zone. Was a B1 zone was one space for every 200. This is one space for every 250. So it's not that different. Just to clarify, so we're not seeking variance. There is an exception, a waiver that we're seeking for RSI. So I just wanted to, but thank you.
Does anybody know what size the parking spaces are out here? Are they 10 by 20? Because they're asking for 9 by 18. Think about when you parked your car out there tonight. Do you think you had enough space if it was another foot narrower?
The standard is 9 by 8. We're compliant.
That's not.
Yeah, there is a variance of one side.
Every statement that is made is testimony, and we can't hear you from back there. So if you have any additional comments, step back up to the podium.
It's what was required. 9 by 18 is what they were want you to accept.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Correct.
That's the non-resident. So for the residential, the standard in this zone is 9 by 18. There's like no square foot.
I do. Okay, Joseph Anderson, Anderson, 11 Center Avenue. And my comment was about, actually, previous commenter mentioned that the driveways are almost exactly going to be adjacent to each other. My driveway is going to be, it's also right there, multi-family, double wide driveway, the two cars going in and out. This new property having in and out, and Valley across the street having in and out. Some kind of solution, I don't know if there's a, maybe the block the box thing that worked really well on Main Street Center to improve the traffic flow there. Something like that might be recommended there, or some other solution, so that it doesn't become like irritable, we bother making the jet.
If I may, we did have something to discuss. The center of it's going to require no parking at all. Either side, center avenue, up with currently you can't park. You're not allowed to park on the eastward side of the ground. Whether like just you get up to this driveway under the current condition of cars.
Yeah.
The current location and cars are coming on the bed, so it's going to help that and we know there, but Main Street, I believe it's going to. But we have to, yeah.
Yeah, that does sound like a good improvement, because right now we have people parking, very concentrated area. And oftentimes delivery trucks are pulling on the sidewalk across the street to deliver to that building. They're sometimes blocking my driveway, which is usually not that big of a deal, because it's just there for a minute or two. So hopefully that resolves that issue of having FedEx truck, Amazon trucks, and then you have the moving trucks across the street.
This is what was required, the parent asset to put it there, to fully know. Well, your property was combined with parking. Why that right away, right next door, where the building is off, building is gone. So that's why it's so close, we take effort to give the green space and there, they were top.
Actually, that brings up a question. The fencing, is that right on the property line? Is there any kind of setback from the property?
I would be,
On your property, but exactly at the property. And I don't know if there's a legal requirement that it's going to be setback slightly.
With anything around that.
Yeah.
It's not really good. I don't know what you want to, but we placed it.
The question was, is there a requirement that it's set back from the very edge of that property, or can that fence be exactly the process? Okay. Is that?
To answer your question, there's not a setback is what he's asking.
I don't know.
No setback requirement for the fence. Okay. And you said there's gonna be no, just to clarify, you said there's gonna be no parking, except for maybe delivery trucks that park there momentarily from on center, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Right, yeah, we submitted the application on October 15th, we have not had anything in writing, we've had some conversations with them going back to when we submitted last week. That's how we know that. But it's in Parents Group.
Okay. Oh, but is it within the town's jurisdiction to put good signage up? Make sure that we don't have too many issues. It seems like right now, not your property, but across the street, that people just park on the sidewalk. Sometimes. Maybe not an issue. So maybe it's not a question for you, but the town. Would that be something that the county would have to do, or the town can do as far as adequate sign? Yeah. I've seen people park literally next to the no parking.
That didn't work with you.
Right. Well, I guess my question is more for somebody in town. So, but is the signage the responsibility of the county, or is the responsibility of the town? I know you said enforcement is the responsibility of the town. Does anybody answer that if it's the signage?
Mr. Bennett, I can answer that a little bit from the non-planning board perspective. The county typically defers to the municipality as to whether or not we want to permit or prohibit parking in areas, including on county roads. So they have deferred to the municipality in the placement of parking spaces. And if it's the request, and unfortunately, this body, this board can't do that, the council would have to make the determination as to whether or not to prohibit parking. The county could also do it, but it's the council that would have to prohibit parking in areas if the county doesn't take that action. So that's something that you'd have to come to a council meeting and request that the council enact or prohibit parking in that particular area.
Oh, and then county would possibly go along with the recommendation. Town want to do it, we can say, okay, we'll do it. Or allow you to do it.
Correct.
Okay, understood. Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to address?
I do. Paul, Ossou, Osu. I am not a resident of Little Falls, but I'm here as the duly appointed trustee of the Little Falls United Methodist Church. I am legally and fiduciarily responsible for the property. Yes, thank you, sir. So we have a couple concerns and I'll address them first with the variances on the property and the property coverage. First, our concern is going to be on the encroachment onto our property being to the right of it at 139 Main Street. The constructability of the property without encroaching on that side, there's going to be almost zero space between the property edge and our property. And when they're going to be constructing this building, how are they going to access the construction on that side as well as future maintenance without having to come onto our property and damage our property as it is, as well as emergency access onto those sides of the property? You know, with the rear facing parking lot, obviously emergency vehicles can now get around the side, three sides of the building fairly easily. But on our side, certainly they would have to come up on our side. Additionally, you know, much of the planning in this township happened a long time ago. The roads are very narrow. I understand as a resident of Verona, I don't have to deal with this from day to day, but when it snows here, plowing's a problem. The way their parking is going to be structured, I'd like to know where that snow is going to go. Because right now it looks like it's probably going to go out into Central Street or be pushed up onto the properties in the surrounding areas. So that's most of our concerns with the usage of the actual property. I would like to echo some of the things that were said about the parking. You know, they're going to have 33 spots, which is a variance from the 34 required by the municipal code. In reality, if you have 5 down the road, you have 5 electric vehicle spots that are for electric vehicles only. You're really only going to have 28 spots, 20 of which, a minimum of 20 of which are going to be used by residents. The managerial of the building would have to then mandate that each tenant can only have 1 car. You're looking at 20 to 40 cars because many families, 2-car family. Additionally, in the concept of the transit village, and the gentleman, the architect over here said, you're going to have a potential for a work from home suite there on the first floor. That means these are people that are not leaving the building. As it was pointed out too, those that take the train don't need to take their car. The cars are going to sit there. There's a lot of faith being put into that these retail businesses that are moving in are going to close their door at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock and leave, and certainly not be open till 7 or 8 o'clock. Most stores are open later, clothing stores, any sort of retail store. You don't, you know, there's going to be a definite overlap there. And even if you don't use your car during the week, you know, trains are great. Trains go where trains go. You have to lay tracks. They don't go to Willowbrook. They don't go to the ShopRite. These people that are going to move in here as residents are going to have cars. They're going to have 1 car. They're going to have 2 cars. And our concern as a trustee of the church is what they're going to see just down the street, a block away and across the property is a big fat parking lot. And they're going to wind up in our parking lot. And it's what we're setting ourselves up for here is a conflict with our neighbors of constantly having to call the police to tow. Whereas if there's a larger footprint of spaces and a better usage of overlap, I think we could avoid that. So that is our comment, my comment on that on behalf of the church.
Thank you. If you can just say, can you address, particularly on the encroachment?
With regard to the, you don't want to put that in. But what you notice if you did have a one top, it required to use the side of details, but there is really kind of fire and there was a fire. No fire there. And what simply, actually, you bring up, usually snow doesn't properly. We have two large areas of that property, for example, snow, so we typically do. And the white there, motions there, and then the way up area in the middle. And then from a practical standpoint, if we have a huge, we have to be a huge snowfall, then there is some.
And then just the last comment for me, and you know, you'll address this eventually. As I've seen the streets there when there's been an event at the school or library too, and to echo what was said, and you have the building across the way, but you also have the municipal library, the municipal center. You have the new construction going on just down the street of the for municipal building there, and you have the elementary school. It's a very busy area of town, and then you add the building usage from the residency across the street above the valley, and now the light usage here. It's gonna get packed down there. So that's our comments, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Sounds vibrant. Anyone else care to address the board?
Kathy Flanagan, oh, sorry. I do. It's Kathy Flanagan, FLANNAGAN at 38 Warren Street. When he says it's going to get bad there, it is bad. It is terrible. Parking on both sides. I don't care if there's no parking. The mayor and I have had many discussions on this. The garbage truck is there. There is a one lane. It is very dangerous. You can't see to turn down Center Avenue. If you look tonight, like at 5:30, that parking lot for Kirk's filled with cars because there's not enough parking now. And you're talking when the school is open, the teachers take up most of that municipal parking when they're saying, oh, the people are going to be closed at 5 o'clock. The teachers are there to 3:30, and that parking lot is full. It is very dangerous to live in my neighborhood. That used to be a very quiet neighborhood. Our street is filled with cars that don't belong to people on our street. Our church parking lot will have cars in it. It's only makes sense. You can say all you want that there's enough parking there, but there isn't. There isn't now enough parking. And no one here lives in that area. We're not building in Great Notch. We're not putting up 3-story buildings up there and retail there. We're putting it on Main Street where there's always enough retail, and retail starts now at 6 o'clock in the morning in our neighborhood because the Pilates place opens then. And then you have the hairdresser. They're very lucrative business, thank God for them, but they fill up our streets with cars. And it's not fair to the neighbors here. We are living in a neighborhood that was, our families lived in our homes since 1890. There wasn't cars then, so we don't have a driveway. We use the street for our parking. So a lot of times we don't have the parking that we need on our street. The church does accommodate for us too. And it's not fair that the church have to accommodate for the town because you decide that you want another building that's going to be intrusive on my family's property with lights in the back and everything. So we're talking about a 3-story building. We have trees now. It's very quiet on our street as far as in the back of our homes because we do have a lot of greenery there that you're all going to take down and put a little bush and say we put some green stuff. It is just not fair in our neighborhood. And Valley National is a mess. The garbage truck does park on that sidewalk. I have called the police. I've had the police at my house for the complaint, which nothing has been done. There's parking on that side of the street all the time, and it would be wonderful not to have parking on both sides, but that's not realistic that it's going to really happen because there are going to be delivery trucks that come. The poor people, like you have the poor Uber driver that you're giving a ticket to because they park in the front of the building, but you're not giving any tickets to any of the people that park on Center Avenue. I walk my dog 3 to 4 times a day. I work from home.
or 4 times a day on Main Street. Main Street is filled all the time with parking. That parking lot is filled, that is Kirk's all the time with parking. And where are those cars gonna go? Not in the 33 spaces that you have in this building. So I appeal to you not to approve this because it will cause even bigger traffic problems. Main Street, you don't turn down Center Avenue. If you live on Warren Street, you don't turn down Center Avenue. You go up and around because you can't turn onto Main Street. You're taking your life in your hands just crossing Center Avenue because the cars park in front of the fire hydrant even. You can't see down, so you have to creep across to see, hopefully, that because the cars drive so fast up the street, even when you think that it's empty, cars are zipping up the street, so you may not be able to, one of these days there will be an accident. But they do park at the sidewalk. I have pictures of them parking on the sidewalk. I have called the police. They don't always respond. And I just think this has been a terrible situation for us now. It's just gonna make it worse. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to address the board?
Okay, Joseph Anderson. I'd like to concur with a lot of what Kathy was saying. Is that, and I feel bad for Mr. Vettery and his company because I feel like this is actually relatively reasonable project and kind of the Valley project kind of ruined that neighborhood. So this feel like this wouldn't be an issue if it wasn't for that property. I've seen that's what she's saying, garbage and the garbage pickup, they're very noisy. They pull it all the way out the street. A lot of the garbage ends up in the street, drops away. And people just don't want to park in that underground parking lot. I see residents there, people go to the businesses. A lot of people, you would think that they have their own parking, they would not want to park on the street. I see people who live in that building park in front of my house to go, I don't know, I see workers who work in that building carrying their tools, like around the corner, even like on Warren. Like, come on, like, why are they parking so a block away? People just don't want to park in that park. And unfortunately, like, damage is already done. Now you're getting a lot of consequences of that and resistance to your process. So I feel sorry for you for that. I guess it's not really a question, just a comment that, and I confirm what you're saying, and it is an issue, but.
I think I'm doing, I think, who's gonna respond to that, so, again. I think it's one of the
Yeah.
neighbors, have to look at, the board defining, a law here, I don't know, with the law, this is prototypical building development, master plan, and the capabilities don't say that we will see, so you wanna have a vibrant downtown, you don't wanna have, that office building. If that office building were to get something, you all right, but rent that office building, that is technically one space for every 200 square foot or 50 square feet. That's a lot of parking. An automotive place would overcome that. So we could sit, multi-country. There are benefits to what the town has done. Anything that's wrong, well, maybe some things need to be addressed and maybe the customer and the security of that, but I don't think they can the same right. This is not the building that have. These building or anything, one building, market, building, and you don't have any units to go for, I believe it's wrong, but it's something about when you try to build a vibrant downtown, having these they love that.
And I'd just also like to request that you, please contact me when it comes to the demolition of that building you just mentioned, because it's looking like it's a swamp inside of there and it's right on my property, so I appreciate
the reason for
much open communication with you as possible.
There was, discussed the debate that happened at the flyer. We moved, to office. And that's why that.
I've seen when it rains, the water come out that front door on the sidewalk. So,
There's also
from inside the
also another time capsule there, but that would be silly for the big village.
I'd be curious to see that.
I want to thank you for your comments. Does anyone else wish to address the board?
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, sir. My name is Janet Cooper, Cooper, 47 Oak Crescent Road in Little Falls, New Jersey. I've been a resident for over 30 years. I personally don't like what's going on in our town. I know that growing pains, as you say, are always more painful for the actual people that are being affected by it. And we all have to live all your decisions. And they're not really going to be good for the majority of people that are here, obviously, because they're here for a reason. I'm here because I love this town. I love what we have. That looks really beautiful on a piece of property that can accommodate it. The property you're proposing can't accommodate something like that. I had a couple of questions. I was taking notes. Thank you so much for everybody else who commented so far. You've hit on some of the things you've knocked off on my list, some of my questions. The occupancy of the building next door, Valley, that monstrosity, is that at full capacity right now? Is it completely rented so we can have a real idea of what the traffic flow is? Or is it just one of those things where you're kind of guesstimating? Is it at full capacity? Does anyone on the board know if it's been fully rented? Okay.
There can be no valid answer because we don't know.
Okay, so when we're thinking of adding more blockage and more traffic and more buildings, we're still not we keep on throwing it, but we're not stopping, taking a breath and going, wow, are we able to accommodate what we already have in motion? 381, is that been completely rented as well? Is that fully occupied right now? Because we keep putting up these ugly boxes and we don't even have people that are filling them up, but yet we keep building them. That's one thing. The second thing, that what you're proposing, if the building is not fully occupied at Valley, we also have that corner of Stevens, which is beautiful green grass right now. Eventually, somebody's going to be developing that. Where are we putting all of the parking for that? The Center Ave is thin. And exactly what, I can't remember who said, with the traffic trying to get out. Will you try to make sure that no one can make a left if they're coming out of the parking lot? Because from Valley and this proposed parking, if they're coming out and they want to get on Main Street, that they can only make a right and not make a left, as well as the Warren Street project. Has that been decided? Is that going to be a green space? And then you're going to take again yet another street with parking away from the tenant, from the citizens of Little Falls? Because right now there's no parking as it is. It's been the biggest argument for every business since I've been here for over 30 some odd years, that there's no parking. And although, to your point, you made that parking lot off of Stevens, which, sorry, I think it's completely horrible. You can't, there's only one way in, one way out. It's whoever designed it should be shot, like, no offense. It just doesn't work and nobody's going to park there. So if you're telling me that the Warren Street Park project has been approved, they have to realize that's another street of parking that's going to be taken away. So has that been approved? The Warren Street, because we have to consider that, because these 30 some odd spots are not enough. Let's get real here.
Ms.
If
Correa,
somebody has
you're
a
looking at
single
me
parking
quite,
spot,
you're looking at me quite a bit making the comments, and I can appreciate why. Warren Street project has not been approved. You're referring to the pedestrian plaza, but that would actually result in an increase in parking spaces. Because there would be, I mean, you could look at me with the look, but there's plans that have been drawn that have increased parking because the number of spaces in the current municipal lot would extend all the way across through where the street is. And the 5 spaces that would be lost on the street are actually, there's more of it, but no, it has not been approved. It's a $500,000 project that right now the council and I certainly am not looking to spend in making that improvement. There was hope that we might get a grant for it at some point, but there would not be a reduction in parking spaces.
Okay, but when you're saying it's not going to be a reduction in parking spaces, it's going to be an increase of parking spaces farther away from the very, businesses that you want people to
No,
use.
they literally be abutting the street where the current parking is on Warren Street. It would be within, 20 feet of the current parking spaces.
Okay, so the traffic flow, when you did your traffic study, did you take into account exactly what, the residents that live here, the residents that try to maneuver, trying to make a left out of Center Ave? You can't, especially during busy hours. You're going to have an accident there. So now you're going to funnel all these people. If the Warren Street is approved and it's taken away, the parking's away, they're all going to go on Walnut. And Walnut then, the nice bucolic street that it is going to be another main thoroughfare. What happened, and construction, where are you putting all this stuff? Where are you putting, there's so many things that you're just not considering, and the people that are actually living in the area, and even the people of the town that have to try to maneuver, where we all take back roads. We don't even go down Main Street anymore because it's such a fiasco. And you're going to add more to this?
See, that's an interesting point you raise. I agree with you. People from Little Falls don't take Main Street. They take back roads,
Yeah.
which just proves the point. Little Falls residents don't create Little Falls traffic.
Well, then.
So
building.
your point of adding residential units to Little Falls is counterintuitive to the argument you just made. Because Little Falls residents don't create Little Falls traffic. Main Street is filled with people getting off of Route 46, trying to make their way east at the afternoon rush hour. Those are not Little Falls residents. So adding 20 units in Little Falls does not theoretically add any noticeable amount of traffic to Little Falls. Because again, Main Street is filled 9 out of 10 vehicles, not Little Falls residents. And this is something that you can do yourself, follow vehicles from the North Caldwell border all the way down Main Street and see how many of them exit Little Falls on the way. I would venture to say 9 out of 10 do. My point being, adding units to Little Falls isn't adding any noticeable number of vehicles to the Main Street traffic that you're seeing. So I get what you're saying, but on one hand, you're saying, they're not coming, they're Little Falls residents are using back roads and cutting through. I tend to agree with you.
The last thing that I have, emergency vehicles, our police, our fire. Are we able to cover all this? I mean, we don't have enough to cover what we have right now, and we're adding more. Is that something that's been incorporated in any of this?
Can I ask-
Looking at this going, how's a fire truck gonna get into that parking? How are they gonna make that turn into that parking lot? How are emergency vehicles going to get in and out of there?
Sure,
to
sure.
take,
Every
people now?
application is reviewed by the police department, fire department. And if there are comments to be made related to issues with turning radius, things such as that, they provide their comments, every single application.
That's all I got.
I guess just one response to that. So we can only look at ours. We can't look at all the other sites. So with regard to our site, our improvements that are being made right now, the current condition, if we were to rent that off to 5,000 square foot office building and reopen Perks as is, and everyone was parking there, it's a dangerous situation. So I think the county appreciated eliminating, we had an entire curb, the whole site was a curb. The cars were coming in and out on Main Street, taking the left on West on Main, and then they turn coming out of the current curb site, they come right out. So by pushing that back, and I'm all for banning parking on either side of the street up to where the curb goes up. We don't have that, it's not our responsibility. We can only agree to it. The town sounds like the town may be in agreement with that, and that may be in scope of the area, but we can only speak to our site, and there are definitely improvements being made from a parking and traffic standpoint as to what's compared there. We reopen the office building, we open first, the better.
Anyone else wish to address the board?
Where from the testimony that we're about to.
Yes. Katia Anderson, Anderson. My question is, how long will this take to build? Because if you're gonna build it, I want to see it built fast. I'm the Marston House. And I want to see it built fast before someone else takes it. and maybe revises the plans to put an underground parking garage. I guess what I'm saying is it could be worse. I don't want the valley guy getting it. So if you're gonna build, I want it to build fast. All right, I hope so. And once it goes down, I want to see it come up. Okay.
Our goal is to be hopefully very much.
Right, and I understand that it's a strong possibility that someone else could take the plans and revise them, because isn't the state under a mandate to keep building all the towns in New Jersey? Permanently? Okay, one technical question. The office building next door has, as you said, asbestos and toxic. Okay, sorry.
There was.
I'm not sure about the process when you take down a building like that, that may have, it smells. That building physically smells. It's a hazard.
Yeah, so.
Rodents, things, I have to really take care of my property.
So there is a standard that we have to do. Part of removing the paint stuff. Not have to remove it. So this remove with permission of the township, I like the contractor, if they would require that entire roof. First of all. And, yeah, my little 2-year-old nephew, when we could find it, said, it smells. So it is mold that's coming out of the mold that, it's not the brain thing in there. The attendant hospital quickly.
Also, I know that there will be more projects in the future for Little Falls. And I guess this is just a side note. Can we never have a valley happen again? Because I feel like it ruined the structure, traffic, regardless of studies and everything else, for what the town was. And I'm so grateful to all the people that spoke and talked tonight and that came out tonight, because that's why I wanted to live here and bought the house from Karen Marston. So I hope we can keep that idea of a nice place to live in mind and never have another valley. Thank you.
I do. My name is Lou Acosta, ACOSDA. I live at 32 Warren Street. I just want to let you know that I want to ask the gentleman here to please, because you guys made a big deal out of the front of the building. Remember the back of the building, you got people that have their properties behind. And you put the lights up. We enjoy our privacy now. I don't want to be on the camera 24/7. All right? And the other thing is, we do have a park problem in Center. People park, I see people that live in the building, the Valley building. Park service truck on our street in Warren. There's a full truck. I'm gonna take a picture and send it to you, you can see. He lives in a building, drives a service truck and parks in the on Warren Street. That's all and that's like most of the one to be have. Thank you.
So if I may, the only thing I would do is encourage residents who may want to consider different parking arrangement on Center Ave in that area to attend a council meeting, because it's the council, the governing body in town, who has the ability to change an ordinance, again, with, again, approval by the county, to modify where parking is permitted and prohibited. So while this planning board may, maybe sitting here able to listen to you tonight, they cannot enact an ordinance that would prohibit parking in specific areas of town. The council can, I can tell you, and dealing with the council, both sides of the aisle have been very receptive to listening to residents' ideas regarding these types of things. And certainly something that could or should be brought before the council to consider.
Chairman, speaking on behalf of the council, it's something the council would take a hard look at to eliminate parking on Center Street. We'll have some discussion with council members and see if that would be a possibility.
Thank you. Anyone else have any wish to come on up.
Yes. Sean May, May, 24 Center. Okay, this is just a couple of quick questions. Just want to, so there's not going to be any emergency generator on the roof that's going to pop up magically. Just want to make sure, because we had one pop up on the other building, and it recently got raised, and it's still not secured. It's very visible, it's ugly, I hate it. So that was one question. The other one is site safety. I want to make sure that this building is site safety wise. This Valley National Bank was not. You got a lot of kids that walk past this every day for school. So it needs to be done safely, it needs to be have construction fence around the entire property, not just here and there. And we need to have access to it safely so the kids can cross by the site. It's very busy during the daytime where kids and parents are picking up the kids. And also, I just want to make sure that when we demolish this building, that it's a clean slate. I don't remember seeing any guys running around.
She fucking hates me.
So I want to make sure that the site, before you demolish, I want to see the record.
Sure, yeah, the record, the present state is not.
I'm talking about mold as well. That place is loaded. It's blacktop, so that's top. I don't want it to leave. It's unsafe. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Last call. No one else coming forward. I close the meeting to the public. Want to summarize here, Mr. Vetter?
Sure, and I'll be brief, looking at the hour. So
We'll allow you the time to summarize.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, we've heard a lot of comments today from members of the public, and I appreciate everyone coming out. I care about this town very much, as I know the residents do as well, and I don't live far from this site. So I think, what I'm really focused on here, and I think that, what the members of the board should focus on as well, is the fact that this is the prototypical building that was envisioned when the transit village zone was adopted. Now, members of the public may disagree with that, but that is the current zone for this area, that we would create a vibrant downtown, that we have a walkable downtown. And these buildings have certainly exceeded their useful life. We have a 5,000 square foot office building that had fallen into disrepair, and a very large automotive site that has bays in the back, bays in the front. Also office space in the front. It was built as a Pontiac showroom. It's a large building. Just the parking demand on that alone would far exceed the 33 spaces if we were to reopen the site. By the way, both of those buildings would be non-conforming based upon not only the zoning right now, but also under the B1 zoning. The site planning for that building's atrocious. Everything was at the road. Cars were backing onto Main Street. We've eliminated with this all of the curb cuts on Main Street. And what I think is really wonderful about this building is it's an extension of our downtown. Like I said in my opening remarks, the downtown shopping district really ends at Valley National. This is sort of bridging together this building where the apartments are, Methodist Church, and then starting a walkable downtown. I see so many people walking by this building, particularly on Sundays at the nice farmers market that the town has, and there's nothing stopped into there. This is something that is really creating that classic downtown building that finally eliminates these two vacant buildings into a largely conforming building. These are both variances that we're seeking. We've tried to work with the neighbors and appreciate the efforts of the township to make this a much better building than it was as originally conceived, which was a much more dense building that had less parking. This new building is going to be looked at as a landmark for the area. And, I go back to, I can't speak to the Valley building, but I look at the success of a building like the Bromley, and we have retail tenants in there, and it's a very thoughtful approach as to what tenants that you get in there. So it creates some diversity of tenants in our downtown, whether it's a florist or a physical therapy place. in terms of having a, a diversity of retail usage. We've looked at, how many pizzerias and nail salons. We don't have any of those at the Bromley, and that was on purpose. So the variances that we're seeking tonight, I think, have been more than substantiated by the planner. We have, provided and demonstrated that numerous purpose of not only the municipal land use law, but our master plan have been looked at in this development. We're looking at, visual improvements, site improvements. We have addressed, I think, most of the comments, if not all the comments of the engineer with respect to not having an unsightly garbage dumpster outside, having a dedicated loading area so Amazon trucks are not located outside, having facade improvements. Now we've improved the sidewalk. And, looking at the building, I think the architect, I'm not going to inflate his ego, but the architect knocked it out of the park with this. And if the board sees fit to looking at, we can talk at a later date about the mural. That was a nice element for this downtown building. And I just leave you with, overall, this is a site that is long overdue for redevelopment, and it's being redeveloped in a way that is largely conforming with anything substantively with respect to our transit village zoning and our master plan. I think that the applicant has more than met the legal standards for the board to approve the C variances that are being requested tonight. And I appreciate everyone's time, the public, members of the board and the board professionals, and I hope the board sees fit to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the board? Any motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Brigliadoro?
I understand. Regard to affordable housing. Issuing the recognition that we would work with, especially the youth labor. For, probably.
So
whatever, so you saw what that is, that.
Yeah, I think that legally that we're asking for a variance because there is conflict, but there is a part in the Transit Village Code that speaks to there being, and I think that's why Mr. Kovalar's put it in his letter, that speaks to there being a requirement for 20%. I have not seen that. The settlement with Fair Share Housing said 15%. We've seen other developments that have reduced that if they can demonstrate that it's an undue hardship for them to do that. So I think I before this meeting, I looked up the KV Realty 2022 resolution, and the language in that resolution was that the applicant will comply with the law as it relates to the affordable housing and work with the planner and the master. But we are technically requesting a variance from that part of it.
That, it's chairman, seeking clarification from the site plan approval. Variances and circulate on the record. Minimum parking setback in the property line and required. Parking setback in the building department from the property required. Variances see maximum coverage that allow. Yeah, also requires parking full side. The non-residential part of the requires. So let's see what the number of parking. Does involve our witness requirement.
Correct.
There are some conditions of approval. That put the public hearing. Well, God.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the application with the conditions that were set forth by Mr. Brigliadoro.
May I have a second?
Second.
Please poll the board.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Karash,
Yeah.
Mr. Luke Damiano,
Yes.
Ms. Cataldo,
Yes.
Mr. Poshis,
Yes.
Mayor Damiano,
Yes.
Councilman Scoba.
Yes.
Mr. Dolan, Mr. Kilpatrick.
Everyone votes yes, the application is approved. Very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Mr. Veteran, before you turn around.
Yeah.
We're going to end the meeting. No more applications tonight.
Okay, we're just gonna have to give notice.
Yes, we will carry,
Mhm.
Make that announcement. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Somebody. Yeah. Want to say on midnight, Rich?
That's a roll.
I.
Chairman, one should make an announcement that. Just finish it.
if I may, if the application is, completed, can you vacate the chamber because we have additional business to conduct? We're, okay. Any recommendations?
Chairman, so for the record, the additional application, something like the Eastern one, city property, the Eastern Road, lot 274, lot 25, Toronto and city 130, Eastern Road, block 830, lot 25 and 57. Mr. Chairman, the applicant will represent what Mr. Chairman have provided notice of the public hearing tonight. Since we weren't able to reach those two applications tonight, those matters will be found to the board's next meeting on December 4th, 2025 at 7 o'clock. And Mr. Chairman, I recommend that since notice was perfected with the hearing date tonight, that no further notice be required, that any members of the public are either or both of those applications, they can concur here on December 4th at 7 o'clock, and we will continue those out.
We'll be ready. Thank
Very
you.
well.
Thank you, everyone.
Accepted?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any old business? Any new business? We have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?